Saipan was uniquely horrendous. And they were all horrendous, right? You know all the names. Peleliu, Iwo Jima. You know all the names. I don't have to go into it right now. But Saipan is one of the first places we got to where we were close enough to the Japanese mainland to genuinely threaten the Japanese mainland. That's one. Two, there were actual Japanese people living on the island. This wasn't some abandoned island out in the Pacific where they just decided, oh, let's build fortifications here. No. There were people on the island of Saipan. And understand, by the time the Marines and the Army got to Saipan, Japan knew losing was inevitable. They were trying to make it as costly as possible and go out in an honorable way, but they believed all of them were going to die anyway. Which brings us to the story of Benjamin Salomon. He originally started out as a ground pounder, rifleman, excellent guy, and gets promoted up through the ranks for a variety of reasons. He's a very intelligent individual to become a dentist. He's just a dentist. Now, pause for just a moment. Something happened on Saipan. As we were taking the island, and it was horrible to take the island because there were so many caves and hideouts, and we were always having to root people out of these caves, and we're encountering civilians, sometimes civilians we had to kill in order to win. It was just a terrible, terrible affair. But eventually we got to the place where Japan, they were out of stuff. They didn't have any bullets left. They didn't have any food left because our Navy was so dominant, they just couldn't get resupplies in. So we had taken so much of the island, we're now down to 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 Japanese, depending on the source, and they don't have anything left. Well, we're not dealing with people here who are gonna fire their last bullet and then say, okay, I'm done, I surrender. Again, we're dealing with a different mentality. So on Saipan, and you can read stories about it, I've read several, about how we knew something was coming. Remember when I talked about the Japanese bonsai charge? This happened a lot throughout the war, to where a unit knew it was gone. Well, I don't mean one guy, although they did it individually too, but whole units would decide they can't win, and so they would fix bayonets or pull out samurai swords. The officers all carried those, and they would simply charge. They would charge the American lines, and we would kill them. We would just mow them down like grass. And there were situations where we killed so many of them, we'd have to push over stacks of dead bodies, and they were still coming. Imagine what that looks like. You're sitting in a fighting hole, and you look up, and there's 100 Japanese with bayonets and samurai swords charging you and your buddy in a fighting hole. What's that look like? What's that feel like, right? Well, on Saipan, there was something different. The bonsai charges had previously been an individual or two people, or like I said, a 100-man unit. When they ran out of bullets, bombs, and food on Saipan, they decided it's going to be all of us. And the Japanese would oftentimes get liquored up something fierce the night before or night of a bonsai charge, and they would sing, and we would hear them singing. They would sing and chant and get themselves worked up into a lather. On Saipan, what happened was the largest bonsai charge by a mile in World War II. 5,000 Japanese, not five, not a unit of 100, 5,000 Japanese, including, I might point out, women, just civilians. They would hand them sticks and put knives on the end of it. 5,000 Japanese decided to charge at the American lines. Now, you take 10 men, 20 men, 100 men, and you charge a line of U.S. Marines or Army guys, they're all just gonna die. You take 5,000, you can only kill so many of them things before they come through you. And they started coming through the lines and pouring through the lines, and people were dying in terrible ways. And what I'm about to read for you is Ben Solomon's Medal of Honor citation, and I want you to understand this citation took place during that bonsai charge, when they charged past the lines and they got through the lines and people are being bayoneted and they're having their heart cut out with samurai swords. And once they get through the lines, remember, they start getting back to the things you keep behind the lines. Things like the medical tents. Without further ado, here is the Medal of Honor citation of Ben Salomon. Captain, U.S. Army. July 7th, 1944, Saipan. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Captain Ben L. Salomon was serving at Saipan in the Marianas Islands on July 7, 1944, as the surgeon for the 2nd Battalion, 105th Infantry Regiment, 27th Infantry Division. The regiment's 1st and 2nd Battalions were attacked by an overwhelming force estimated between 3,000 and 5,000 Japanese soldiers. It was one of the largest attacks attempted in the Pacific Theater during World War II. Although both units fought furiously, the enemy soon penetrated the battalion's combined perimeter and inflicted overwhelming casualties. In the first minutes of the attack, approximately 30 wounded soldiers walked, crawled, or were carried into Captain Salomon's aid station, and the small tent soon filled with wounded men. As the perimeter began to be overrun, it became increasingly difficult for Captain Salomon to work on the wounded. He then saw a Japanese soldier bayoneting one of the wounded soldiers lying near the tent. Firing from a squatting position, Captain Salomon quickly killed the enemy soldier. Then, as he turned his attention back to the wounded, 2 more Japanese soldiers appeared in the front entrance of the tent. As these enemy soldiers were killed, 4 more crawled under the tent walls. Rushing them, Captain Salomon kicked the knife out of the hand of one, shot another, and bayoneted a third. Captain Salomon butted the 4th enemy in the stomach and a wounded comrade, then shot and killed the enemy soldier. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Captain Salomon ordered the wounded to make their way as best they could back to the regimental aid station, while he attempted to hold off the enemy until they were clear. Captain Salomon then grabbed a rifle from one of the wounded and rushed out of the tent. After 4 men were killed while manning a machine gun, Captain Salomon took control of it. When his body was later found, 98 dead enemy soldiers were piled in front of his position. Captain Salomon's extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. That is what today is about, honoring men like that.